Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the Plutonium Show. Happy Monday, and welcome to the 80th episode.
Number 80.
So, we did take last week off. If anyone pays attention to our schedule, we were meant to upload last Monday, but I had decided that I was in need of a break entirely from YouTube. I haven't had a break since January 2022. Remember, even when we went to Europe last year, I kept putting out those videos on a weekly basis.
Yep, I remember.
When we were on holiday. So I just needed just that 1 week. And now we're back.
We're back.
Refreshed. So this episode is going to talk about new things that have surfaced in the past few days, but also a bit of catch up for the last week where we didn't get to put out an episode. The agenda, it's not as structured this week, but we're going to look into a few conspiracy theories floating around about Meghan, Harry, and their children. Even though I normally don't like talking about their children, I have been asked to by a few people. They've been sending me links to other people's videos, which I have watched, and opinions have been requested. We'll also talk about Harry, the American. The American British prince and various other things, just in general, the Sussex Endgame, which, yes, is a play on the title of Omid Scobie's upcoming book, but also a discussion of how they have basically ruined their own careers.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was only a matter of time, but you know, now we're finally here. We're finally seeing the mainstream media turn, and so it's very interesting being that, you know, we are some of the few who were there at the beginning, and there were definitely a number of people ahead of us, but I would say we were very early, you know, not part of the bandwagon that it's become. Exactly.
Nowadays.
Oh, now it's cool to hate them. Oh, great. Awesome. Yeah, just in time.
Yeah. All right, so thoughts on the irony of a British prince at the 4th of July celebrations?
Man, it's like literally what they fought against to get away from. And it's like, what are you doing here, right? This country is celebrating the separation from, in a broad spectrum, his family, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it just doesn't make any sense. But I mean, this is kind of a look. I'm sure there's a way to do this tastefully, where, you know, a British prince happens to be there at the 4th of July, but Harry doesn't do tasteful. So it's really an ignorant move. You know what I mean? Maybe if it was, let's flip the coin. Maybe if it was William would be like, you know, making a small little speech going, you know, you've done great, America, since you've separated from us. Like, there would be something tasteful, something to kind of tie it together that we are supporting this. But I think for Harry, it's more of a, I mean, just like, I don't know what this is about. I'm just here.
Well, he wasn't there on an official capacity. Yeah. He was there with his with his family, presumably, and you know, the fact that his daughter has been photographed and making the rounds, I think that's why it became all the more topical. There are a lot of kind of subtopics to this because, firstly, I think of his comment about the First Amendment being bonkers.
Yeah,
and you know, his presence there really shows, as you said, I mean, his comment really just shows how he doesn't understand the significance of that day.
Yeah.
And the war that was hard fought, and won.
Yep.
And then he goes around making comments like that because he's Prince Harry and he's incredibly out of touch.
Yeah.
And I understand that he was there as a resident of the US.
Which is irony in itself.
A little bit, because he keeps going ahead. He keeps using his title.
Yeah.
And keeps insisting on tax, you know, like now he wants the IPP status, you know, which is global.
Yeah.
So presumably he'd be getting US taxpayers to pay for his protection and his family's protection if he is successful. So there's that, his complete disconnect from what that day stands for. And then there's also the fact that he skipped his father's Scottish coronation. It wasn't as big of an affair. It was more of a mini coronation. He wasn't actually crowned. It was ceremonial and just kind of like a watered down version of it. William and Catherine and everyone there weren't dressed as grand. So, but he should have been there as his son. Instead, he was at a 4th of July parade with their children. Now, I don't know if you know this, but in California, there is a law where minors that are photographed by the paparazzi have their faces blurred if permission hasn't been granted by the parents.
Yeah.
In this instance, they weren't blurred. Now, what's happened is some publications, like the Daily Mail, which I'll show you the photos while we're at it, have taken the liberty of blurring out Lilibet's face.
Yeah.
But the official photographs, which, of course, I just checked now, Backgrid,
Yes.
didn't have them blurred out, which tells us all that the parents...
Yes, they would have allowed it, because one thing we learnt from the New York car chase was that Backgrid were ready to back up their actions with law and, you know, basically staying within the confines of, you know, what they could do legally.
Yes.
They weren't just flouting it and thinking to themselves, oh, it doesn't matter, we're paparazzi, we can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Right? So they wouldn't have done something like that, not shield the, you know, not blur the faces, if they thought that could be, because one thing we've learned from Harry and Meghan is that they're extremely vindictive.
And litigious.
And so, I mean, we've got Harry's court case as an example. So they would have done it by the book. They would have crossed their T's, dotted their I's, and made sure that if those photos are going to be unblurred, they have everything back it up. They wouldn't even accept, I mean, obviously no one should accept just a phone call or a word of mouth thing. It should be in writing. But for this point in particular, so yeah, they absolutely gave permission. There's just no two ways about it. And
this isn't the first time.
Yep.
You know, every single time they photograph the children, which people have connected the dots and noticed that whenever their popularity is really sinking, that's when they bring out the children. So it's not the first time. There have been numerous photographs of even before Lily's birth of Archie's face, completely unpixelated, completely unblurred. And because Meghan and Harry presumably gave permission.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time we've even heard anyone use children as a propaganda card, or not a propaganda card, as a literally trying to use it as a get out of jail free card. We've got Amber Heard, we've got Elizabeth Holmes, we've got these people who both fell pregnant or had kids around the time that they were due to be brought before a court and called out for their BS.
Yep. Amber didn't carry the child, by the way. It was a surrogacy.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, we're not accusing Meghan and Harry of, you know, facing any criminal charges at this point. I don't know what's going on with the U.S. deportation case. Nothing's really popped up since. The last I've heard is that the judge asked the department or ordered the department to make a decision.
Yep.
So we'll wait and see. And I don't think, you know, I don't know if Harry is going to be prosecuted. I mean, let's face it. It's a very far cry. Far Cry? Am I like referencing a game? And
yeah, that's well. I mean,
well,
the
I think
game's
it's correct,
referencing
though.
the saying,
Yeah.
right? They took the saying for the game. So,
what do you think of the fact that Harry, instead of seeing his father and going to his coronation in Scotland, decided to go to a 4th of July parade instead? Is that was that correct? Was that the expected thing? Should he have done his duty as his, father's son?
I mean, that's kind of the point, isn't it? It's not that there was nothing else going on and he happened to be there. There was a place for a prince to be. There was a place for even a supportive son to be for his father. So there was something going on, and he thought partying with the Americans when the Americans are separating from him was the more appropriate thing to do. It doesn't get more daft than that, really. And so it, like, if you put this into any other context, a friend has a wedding and you I don't know, you just like, oh, sorry, I've got a I've got to stop by the restaurant that day. You know what I mean?
Was it a coincidence that you brought this up, or did you see that in the notes?
No, I didn't see anything in the notes.
Because he skipped one of his closest friends' weddings. Just recently, just a week ago, maybe a few days ago.
Yeah.
And that's been doing the rounds in the news as well. It definitely wasn't a thing when you and I when we decided to take the week off last week.
Yeah.
So his name is Jack Mann, and he was so close that he was invited to their wedding reception, because they didn't invite a lot of the day guests, by the way. I mean, I feel like you invite whoever was at the church service to your evening party.
Yeah.
It's such a slap in the face. But this particular friend was invited, and he was photographed with Harry. So he was clearly, what's the word? Meghan, gave Harry permission. He was in Meghan's good books at the time.
He had the Meghan stamp of approval.
Exactly. Meghan approved. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. So he recently got married, and Harry didn't go. That's why I was like, did you look at the notes?
No, I was just thinking, because the thing is that a wedding is a once in a lifetime thing between two particular people. I mean, I know someone will argue we can have multiple weddings.
Of course.
That the celebration that you're currently at, you assume is that anyway. This 4th of July party, much like every other year, it will come. The 4th of July is coming around next year, and the year after, and the year after. So what's so important about a 4th of July party compared to, I mean, this is, I would say, bigger than a wedding, because it's your father and he happens to be the King of England. And again, he's your father who, from what we know, I mean, nothing was exposed in the book that would be like, oh, well, of course he shouldn't turn up to his father's. It's not like there's a separation there that has been created by anyone but him and Meghan. So it just doesn't make any sense, and it's childish.
Well, it's deliberate.
Yes.
It's absolutely deliberate. This is what I think of you and this family, but I'm going to still use my title and tell everyone at court to refer to me as His Royal Highness in the first instance, and Prince Harry thereafter. And of course, using his title to argue for his security needs. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to actually doing things that his title would dictate he does, that common decency would dictate he does, that's just, he's nowhere to be seen.
That's why I kind of, sorry to cut you off. That's why I kind of think it's childish, because it's his whole persona. It's this, when little girls think of being princesses, right? They think of the glitz, the glamour, and all that sort of stuff, right?
Meghan Markle. But
we know the role of princess as an adult to be that of,
service.
Of service, exactly. So we're looking at someone who is so self-centered, so selfish, so it is. I can't think of another word for it. It is childish. Mm-hmm. It is the way a child would see the role of being a prince. What can I get out of it, and screw everybody else?
Absolutely. I've been reading Lady C's book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story. I'm almost done, actually. My next video might be a review on it, or maybe just a topic I can extrapolate from it and flesh out. But that, I mean, not that it's any surprise. It's a 3-year-old book. I'm kind of late to the game. But there was a lot of that. A huge chunk of that book is talking about how Meghan and Harry just wanted the perks, as we all know, of their titles, and have this intense messiah complex of we're here to save the world and we are holier than thou at the same time. But they didn't want to actually do any of the work. So yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And it's funny because we talk about service. With Harry, it's twofold, because he's a prince. Mm-hmm. He was raised as one. We all know how his mother also, as much as she was unconventional in her own way, she also was a staunch supporter of the monarchy, was a staunch supporter of her son William becoming king. In fact, she wanted him to become king rather than Charles. And more importantly, was very determined for Harry to support his brother as monarch. She was not an anti-monarchist. So Harry is defying her desires, really.
Yes.
For him and William. But also, so you've got that element, the princely element. But then you've got the army officer element, which I have in common with him. I'm not a princess, but I know that in the army, whether you're a soldier or an officer, it's all about service. It's called the armed services.
Yeah.
You know, you join to serve. And whether that was your intention or not, some people join because they have nothing else to do. Some people join because they want the perks. Some people join because they're running away from a horrible situation or they don't have any other career aspirations. That's fine. But whatever your intentions are, when you get there, assuming you survive training, you are reconstructed to become a person of service. Someone who understands that you are part of a bigger picture. It's not just about you. In fact, it's about the country that you're serving and defending and putting your life on the line for. And it's about putting yourself not last, but putting your country and your mates, you know, especially in Australia. Of course, I haven't trained in the UK Army, but it's all about your mates. It's all about teamwork and working as a team, which is the same thing, but synergy. And then you have this behavior. This is what's always confused me about Harry, because I'm not seeing any of the traits that the army instills in someone who has been a part of it.
Not a single one.
I'm not seeing integrity.
Nope.
I'm not seeing respect for his country or for his family. I'm not seeing teamwork.
Yep.
It's quite the opposite. They are not team players.
Yep.
And I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing loyalty.
No hard work whatsoever. None of that.
Discipline.
Yep.
You know, these things stand out. People who, I mean, you tell me when, you know, as a civilian, is there a difference between people who served? I mean, I know I'm the only one you know who served, but is there a difference?
Yes, there absolutely is a difference. And I can see people, you know, who I think might have even done well in that situation. I mean, whether you've known someone who served or not, you know people who are willing to get the hard work done, who are just going to put their head down and get things done, and they're not going to let anything stand in their way, and are driven by a morality, this is the right thing to do, right? And most importantly, you know when someone is selfless. And spoiler alert, it's not someone who says they're selfless, you know? It's not someone who proclaims that, oh, wow, I only ever think of others, because there's talking the talk and walking the walk. And we see none of this in Harry. We see a lot
of talking.
We see a lot of talking.
Especially from his wife.
I mean, he really doesn't know when to close his mouth. The same for her. And that's what's led them into this situation where the entire world, now finally, the mainstream media is catching on and seeing. I'm sure they've always seen it, but they just report where the money is. But if Harry was a man of service, he would have been at the original coronation in a bigger capacity.
Yes.
He would have been at this coronation. He wouldn't have let anything get in the way of that, not even Meghan, because he would have been a man of honor. He would have been a man of loyalty and
respect, integrity.
All of those things we don't see in him. I mean, if he was any of those things, he would be supporting William, which I just had this thought, you know, this whole idea of I'm the spare. To be a prince of any royal family or a princess, regardless of whether you're scheduled to be king or queen, it's still a great honor. So this idea that I'm the spare and thus I don't matter and I don't care because I can't be the most important. It's like working in a company and being like, I don't give a two hoots about the company because I'm not the CEO.
I'm not the boss, yeah.
It's like you're second in command, right? Well, I mean, the queen would be second in command, but you're...
What do you mean?
As in the king, the queen, and then
sorry,
a prince.
Because in my head, it's still Queen Elizabeth. I'm like, she was first in command.
Yeah, it's still weird living in a world
Queen
without
consort
her.
Is Camilla.
Yeah. But basically, in a position where William is king, Catherine is queen, Harry still has a lot of say.
Yeah.
A lot of sway. I mean, you know, even Catherine, when Elizabeth was alive, her opinion mattered, you know, because that's just it. That's the teamwork aspect, right? Everyone works together, and So to go, well, I'm not the most important person in the room, so I don't want to be in the room anymore, is so snobbish.
It is. And I think he's always been this way, but the palace has done such a good job of covering it. And that really just strengthens this argument that I don't know if he went through the training in the army the way we did, because again, this is twofold. And this is why I kind of feel some kind of understanding for the way the monarchy works, because I did go through training. And in the army, the military in general, of course, all three services, there is a hierarchy. There is a chain of command that you cannot bypass. Now, of course, there is favoritism. I'm not going to pretend that people don't have favorites and, where you can jump, a little bit, but that's not the norm and it's not correct. That's the corrupt way of doing things. So he complains about the hierarchy. I don't remember if it's in his book or in Netflix. He actually complains about the hierarchy in the royal family, the pecking order. And I'm like, of all people, dude, you are someone who served allegedly for 10 years. 10 years. And you still don't understand the concept of hierarchy. You're still not comfortable with it. You grew up in it and then you served. Being in the army was his dream ever since he was a child.
But being in the army in what capacity? Like, again, it sounds like a child because there's a hierarchy in families, right? So when you're in let's use the nuclear family as an example, right? Mom, dad,
older sibling
and siblings,
yeah.
And let's use a son and a daughter for an example, right? Every kid at some point defies the I'll say orders, because we're referring to the army, of their parents at some point. I want to do this. Oh, when I'm the boss, I'm going to do this, right? There's that childish rebellion of they don't want to do something because they're children and they haven't understood that sometimes you have to do things you don't feel like doing.
Yes.
Some people never understand that simple concept and thus live their entire lives being spoiled brats and kicking up a fuss and chucking a tantrum every single time they don't want to do something. And I suspect that Harry is probably like that. Not to mention he probably married the perfect woman, because it sounds like she's like that too.
It does. And, had it not been for him actually exposing himself in Spare, where he wrote about how the army bent over backwards for him, he would have personal one-on-one meetings with generals.
You don't get that.
You don't get that. Take it from me. You don't get that. You have to go through the chain of command. And not only was he having direct access to these people, they were bending over backwards to give him what he wants.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
They created positions for him.
Yeah.
Whatever he wanted, they made it happen. So that's what I mean. He exposed himself. We now know, without, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that he did not have the typical army experience.
Absolutely.
This is not speculation.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's like walk into any big company, right? You're an employee, just any normal employee, and say you want a meeting with the boss. You want a meeting with the CEO of, like, let's say you worked at Google. You want a CEO with the CEO of, you want a meeting with the CEO of Google. What?
But if you're Prince Harry, and you get it. You get it. Exactly.
Because you're a spoiled brat prince.
Yeah. All right. Now to the conspiracy theory element of things. Now, before we get into this, please understand that people have different opinions and we are all entitled to them. And just because we disagree with your opinion, that does not mean that we are better than you, that our stance is better than you, that, we are insulting your intelligence in any way. I've seen some bickering in comment sections of other videos talking about this topic. So there's your little disclaimer. I have always maintained, and I think the two of us have for the past 2.5 years now of this podcast, that Meghan and Harry's children are real. I believe that they are their children. More so, even though I've never been pregnant, I have been around countless pregnant women. Based on specifically Meghan's face during the pregnancy, both pregnancies, I believe she carried those children. You are free to believe that it was a moon bump. You are free to believe that it was a surrogacy. We don't know, but I'm going based on fact, or based on the evidence available to me rather. And the way her face puffed up in those pregnancies, you can say she gained weight, but there is a specific puffing of the face that happens, especially around the nose. The nose gets bigger. You can't fake that. You can't make your nose get fat. So as far as I'm concerned, she was pregnant. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think looking at it from a lawyer's point of view, which is exactly how you look at things, is the best way to do it. So if someone came to you with the, I guess, I don't want to say evidence, but if someone came to you with something they would claim is evidence, right? And said, I would like to take this to court, right? That Meghan's kids aren't her own. There isn't enough substantial evidence to prosecute in any way, shape or form from what I understand about this. Even going, because I originally, when I heard these rumors, I actually thought it was a surrogate thing that, someone else,
but they're still her children.
Yeah, so I thought that's what they were referring to originally.
Yeah.
But I think that without concrete evidence, it's very, I don't think anyone should be making an immediate decision or an extremely conclusive decision without concrete evidence. I think evidence exists for a reason. Yes.
And also, I think we're insulting the intelligence a little bit of the royal family by insisting. Because again, I'm not saying you guys are not wrong to speculate. They're not the most credible couple, but she was within the royal fold when she was pregnant with Archie. I think that members of the royal family would have noticed if her bump kept changing size, if it kept disappearing, if something seemed off. The queen wasn't an idiot.
No.
She wouldn't have reigned for as long as she did and as successfully as she did over the entire Commonwealth if she were. So let's think about that aspect a little bit. Let's give the royal family some credit. King Charles is highly intelligent. Mm-hmm. William as well. So we're not dealing with idiots here. We're not dealing with Harrys. If they were all at Harry's level, for sure they could get away with a ploy like that.
Yeah.
But there's another reason. I suppose there's more circumstantial evidence as to why I believe she carried those two children. Now, the other conspiracy is that who the children we're seeing now are paid actors, are doubles, whatever not doubles, because people are saying the real children don't exist. Again, I've seen the photos of Lilibet not pixelated, and I'm not going to be showing them on because I want to respect that they're children. She is almost a replica of her grandfather, Thomas Markle. Side profile, and I'm not the only one saying this.
Yeah.
I've seen other people say it. She's definitely got the Markle nose.
Yeah.
She's a replica. Archie also looks a lot like his mother. So again, we're going based on fact. Or evidence, I should say.
Yes, I think that's the safest way to do it. Because if we base things not off fact and off, what could be rumors and all this sort of stuff, it's a dangerous rabbit hole, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the safest even for one's own sanity not to get lost down those rabbit holes, because you want to be grounded in reality as much as you can.
Yeah, that's how we prefer. I mean, again, if anyone else feels that you are very compelled with evidence, just present it to us.
Yeah.
Link us the evidence of the fact that it was a moon bump. And I'm not talking about the photos where she was pregnant and, because those things can get photoshopped. Show me a video where her bump suddenly disappears or is moving or, just show me evidence. Because, I've seen photoshopped photos of her where they've flattened. It's so obvious that it's been photoshopped, and that's not evidence. That's very shoddy. And fabricating evidence is really not the route you want to go down.
Yep.
But if you show us the evidence, I'm open-minded. And I've seen videos, very popular videos right now doing the rounds of, evidence. And I'm sorry, I'm not convinced. This also reminds me of arguments that Harry and Meghan's photos, especially recently, are photoshopped, with this one that you're looking at right now being a prime example. So people are using the changing color of the shirt because it's a green shirt. But here, because it looks kind of darker, I would say this is just, shadow and lighting.
Yeah, it could just be a different wide exposure, because I think if someone was photoshopping, they would actually try and get the color matching on the shirts better.
Yes. Now, people will say, no, they're careless, they're idiots, they don't even know how to Photoshop. But I still see the original color there. It's just the photography.
Yeah.
And I just don't see how this was photoshopped. I mean, it's clearly Prince Harry.
Yeah.
And
even that photo where he's kind of, I know he's not purposely hiding because he probably doesn't know where the paparazzi is like Meghan does. But, you can even tell from just a few features from that first photo that it's him.
Yeah, of course. So the changing color, I mean, look, people also use that argument to argue that they're not the real children because their hair color keeps changing, in the sense that sometimes Archie is really red, ginger, sometimes he's a dark brunette, sometimes he's a little bit on the blonde side. Now, the ginger I've never seen in papped shots. It's only when Meghan and Harry release an official like Christmas holiday, so it's clearly photoshopped to be ginger.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, I have dark brown hair. Sometimes, and this is my natural color, it always has been, and sometimes it looks black. Sometimes it looks chestnut. And it's all the same hair. I've had people on Instagram go, oh, that's a lovely new color. And I'm like, it's not. It's just the sunlight. So sunlight and lighting in general has a huge impact on the color of one's hair, especially when it's natural, because it's very multi-dimensional. Like, it's got different colors already. Sometimes you look ginger, actually.
Well, if I grow out my beard long enough, then it does have ginger highlights. But I mean, you can't see anything else on me like that. So,
but the point is, and sometimes your hair in photos looks dark brown.
Yeah.
And when you're actually more of a dirty blonde. So that's still not convincing.
There was a time I thought I had brown hair.
I have brown hair.
Exactly.
Well, there are shades of brown, but no, you are, again, I'm not sure if it's translating, but you're definitely more of a dark blonde.
Yeah.
And you have platinum eyebrows and eyelashes, so it looks like you don't have any sometimes.
Yeah.
So lighting matters. Trust me, I'm someone who works in front of a camera a lot. I also love photography. I'm not a photographer, but I'm very interested in it. So lighting is so important. It can make and break a photo, a video. And I think that's what it is. Now, speaking of body doubles, it doesn't end with the children. It's also extending to Meghan and Harry themselves. And this is where I really start to kind of, go, I feel like this is grasping at straws at this point, and I don't mean any disrespect. But I'm going to pull up the photos that really inspired this.
Before you even show me the photo, I have what I consider, I guess, maybe character evidence that kind of flies in the face of this a little bit.
Okay.
Meghan would never for a second ever pass up an opportunity to not be in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And I think that alone is the strongest piece against this.
Absolutely.
So, now you can show me the photos.
I agree. That is such a good point. Why would she have a body double when she could be flaunting herself?
Yep.
So the photos in question are the ones that were taken, I believe, last weekend. No, weekend before last. So the week that we took off, basically. In Montecito, where the headline is that they're holding hands and sharing a laugh and a joke, which is funny because when you actually look at the photos, Harry is not laughing or even really smiling. And as usual, Meghan is just, I mean, I don't know what's going on. Obviously, I don't know the context, but every single time she's papped, or even in an official event or a wedding, a friend's wedding, she's always laughing and gesturing to herself.
Yeah.
And the way it looks like she's doing it to herself because no one else around her is acting in that way. And giving any indication that there is a shared conversation or a shared joke going on.
Yeah.
So once again, look at her. I mean, she looks, I don't know. I guess she's very talkative and Harry's just listening.
Well, actually, it kind of looks like that crazy person you see down the street who's always talking to themselves
and
you know?
laughing.
Yeah, and like they're having an entire conversation and no one else is privy. And even if she's talking to Harry, he's not in on this conversation.
No, he's not having it. And by the way, it is Backgrid, and we'll get to Carl Larson because I did want to talk about this last week before I decided to take it off, because it's relevant. But let's stick to the topic. People are saying that these photos are photoshopped. And not only are they photoshopped, these are body doubles. This isn't Prince Harry, and this isn't Meghan Markle. I don't know on what basis this is being alleged, because I am looking right at these photos. No one has that body. Meghan has a very distinct body shape as well. She has very scrawny legs and a very wide square waist. It's not an easily duplicated body.
And there's the uncanny valley side of it too, because I mean, we've all seen a bad piece of CGI before, you know.
The Flash.
Yeah, I mean,
although I love that movie.
Yeah, but you know, in fact, that's the perfect movie, because during one of the scenes in that movie, there are a lot of CGI characters on screen. The CGI isn't done very well. I'm assuming they had a couple of weeks to finish the shots.
And that's a multi-million budget
Yep.
movie.
Yep. So when you see those, you know, what's meant to be real people on screen, your brain can just tell something, right? My brain isn't firing off any warning signs about this. That's just Meghan and Harry.
Yes, that's such a good point.
Yeah.
Because you can always tell when something's off. You're right.
Yeah.
Our eyes have a way of, there's something, like when we look at AI.
Yes.
AI rendered images, it doesn't matter how realistic they are. Your brain knows.
Yes.
I guess it's a survival mechanism. You know, it's this recognition. You know how cats recognize cats instantly? It's like, you're another cat.
Yeah.
But, or dogs do it to, yeah. With humans, we also instantly recognize another human.
Yep.
So that is such an excellent point, which I hadn't considered. Yeah, you're right. And there's nothing that looks doctored. So I guess, I don't know if everyone here has heard of Occam's razor. You know, the simplest explanation is often the one you should go with, the correct one, I suppose. And the simplest explanation in this case is it's Meghan and Harry, and they arranged for a pap stroll.
Because they've done it so many times before.
Exactly, by Backgrid, specifically. Why would we add layers of complication and Photoshop and body doubles? To what end? What's the point? You know, they're hungry for fame and recognition.
Yep.
Why would they do it?
I mean, she's probably what's a word that I can use that's not that cruel? She's probably so up herself. That was the best I could. That was like, she's probably so up herself that she probably thinks that this pap stroll will be the one that people look at her and go, oh, but she's really pretty, so she kind of done all those bad things. Like, that's how she thinks from what we've seen. So, you know, you can't do that with a body double.
No.
I mean, she would fly anywhere in the world to go and hang out with important people, leaving her children at home.
Yep.
It wouldn't matter. She will be anywhere to get fame.
Mm-hmm.
She is so fame hungry I don't know who else to compare it to.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at, this is undeniably Meghan. Undeniably. The nose, I'm looking at a side shot now. The legs, you know, everything. Yeah. It's it's funny because people have a joke that she never irons her clothes.
Nah.
One meme compared this shot in particular to a scrunched up tissue.
That's actually pretty funny.
And, you know, they're using Harry in particular. They're saying, oh, no, Harry's not that buff. This is definitely a body double. I mean, he's normally in a suit when you see him. And you don't really see a lot of muscular definition when someone's wearing a suit that's not like skin tight, which suits shouldn't be. So here we're seeing him on the rare occasion with a t-shirt. So you get to see how buff he is. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Another reason, actually, I just connected these to argue against the body double argument, is the photographer in question, Carl Larson. Now, when I saw these photos weekend before last, I saw the name and I said, why is that name familiar? Why is it ringing bells? So I Googled it and I saw his face and I realized it was the man who had a brief YouTube show with Thomas Markle,
The
Senior.
one and same.
Yep. Meghan's father, called Remarkable Friendship. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. And he had basically duped Tom into thinking he's a friend.
Mm-hmm.
When later it turned out he photographed Meghan at the polo, Meghan and Harry, last year, I think. And that's when people started going, whoa, wait, the same Carl Larson?
Mm-hmm.
Now, why this is, and now it's happening again. Now, why this is curious is Meghan is a control freak.
Yep.
She wouldn't just let anyone photograph her, especially because we know, basically, that since it's always Backgrid, sometimes I think it's Splash, it's prearranged.
Yes, every single time.
And this happened before with the photographer who conspired with Thomas Markle in the lead up to the wedding to make him look good.
Yeah.
That same photographer later photographed Meghan and Harry in a pap stroll that was, unplanned. So she has a history of somehow getting the same photographers who worked with her family, with her father in particular, to then photograph her. And I'm sorry, this is LA. There are thousands of paparazzos.
If not hundreds of thousands.
You're right. So this is way beyond a coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. There could have been so many other people to reach out to Thomas Markle and so many other people to be there when Meghan needed a pap stroll, but the same person is just too on the nose. It's like, did she not think that someone would realize that one day?
Get this, it gets even worse. Carl Larson made a post on Instagram with these photos saying, oh, it's so good to see my friends Meghan and Harry. You see, this is proof that their marriage is not on the rocks. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. Hopefully, I'll put up the screenshot. He put a story up calling them his friends and saying that this proves their marriage is not on the rocks, which betrays the whole purpose of this pap stroll. Clearly, it was set up to prove that their marriage isn't in trouble.
Which, what did I say earlier? If you say that you're selfless, you're probably not selfless. And if you have to say that your marriage isn't on the rocks, then it's probably on the rocks.
Exactly.
Especially because it's at this height of, I don't want to call it fame, but infamy. Then everything you say, I mean, everything you do is a direct response. This isn't a one-on-one sit-down interview where maybe someone might tell the truth. Obviously, neither of these two. But this is a pap stroll designed just to do something to their reputation.
Yeah. In this case, to, rebut the notion that their marriage is in trouble. Which, by the way, I don't really necessarily want it to be in trouble because they have children.
Yep.
It's not something we're rooting for on this channel, but it does seem to be an inevitability because of the toxicity of that underlies this whole relationship.
Absolutely. The thing is that if this was William and Catherine, again, the golden example, if someone said their marriage is in the rocks, William and Catherine would just go about their day.
Absolutely.
Don't complain. Don't explain.
They wouldn't arrange a pap stroll to prove otherwise.
And then eventually, after a few publications have ran this story, when William and Catherine are still together, it's still going and doing their job as prince and princess. Not that Harry and Meghan would know anything about that, but they're just them living their lives and getting on with it and ignoring what the tabloids and the magazines are putting on. That's all the evidence you need. You don't need to come out and say, it's not on the rocks, we swear. Even though we can't be trusted to say anything because we've been proven liars every single time before.
Exactly. This is just like people who keep parroting about something like, I'm a humanitarian, Meghan and Harry. Yep. I read books, I love books. All the time. It's like, well, do you have to, why? Well, if you have to say it.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about William and Catherine. By the way, they just recently were involved. William played in a polo match that raised, I think, £1 million for charity.
Wow.
And I saw photos of it, which I don't know if I can pull up here too easily. There it is. And the love you can see in their eyes for each other. You cannot fake this. You know, the way they look at each other, there's such affection. It comes out at you. It's almost palpable.
Again, with the human instincts, you can tell when it's natural. You can tell when it's real. And if it was fake, like we've just seen with Harry and Meghan, you can just tell. And that's the one thing that everyone's been saying about Harry and Meghan since the very beginning, is that he's done it now. He's dug himself a hole he can't get out of. And we've seen it time and time again, the evidence come through.
Yeah.
So I think that this marriage on the rocks thing has probably been true since day one. Since the moment she got her claws into him, this is nothing new, except that we just have so much evidence that we can see it.
Yeah, and Harry wasn't worn out before.
Yeah.
It wasn't wearing on him because it was new.
Yeah.
But I'm just still looking at these photos of William and Catherine at the polo. My goodness. I think they've been married 12 years, but then they were together for almost 10 years before that. And they still look at each other like they light up each other's lives. It's beautiful.
There's a sense of, you can just tell they've always got each other's back. You can tell that they genuinely like who the other person is. And you can tell that if there's just so many things, as the picture says 1,000 words. Whereas with Harry and Meghan, I see Meghan rushing off, and then I see Harry getting pulled a lot of the time. And then sometimes he stands up and he'll, do something outrageous, but he's along for the ride for the most part.
Yeah.
There is no teamwork. There is what Meghan says, and then Harry follows. And with Harry, he does a lot of heinous things himself, but how many attacks against his own family was he doing before Meghan?
None that we know of.
Exactly.
I could say so much about Catherine. The thing I noticed about her is how she's so full of surprises, and you wouldn't otherwise know until she presents it to the world. She never boasts. She never talks about how many talents she has. I mean, I remember when she played the piano live with a band, which we know as musicians, you have to keep to time.
Yep.
She didn't mess up, you know. It's a skill to play live with a band, not to
mention stage fright as well.
Yes.
I mean, I know she's used to being in front of people, but there's standing in front of people and smiling, and there's standing in front of people and performing.
Well, she's also notoriously shy.
Yeah.
It's not natural. She's not Meghan. She's not in it for the fame and the limelight, and she is very shy. She actually had to get, I'm assuming, a lot of media training to be who she is today, because when she was first engaged, she was so shy.
Yep.
And it was very noticeable, which is understandable. But then she plays tennis, like she played tennis against Roger Federer. And in the photos with her athletic build, you would think she was a top tier tennis player. She held her own. She looked like she belonged. She's just this, I don't know. She changes an outfit and becomes someone else, and she really does it. She's not a poser.
That's just it. She doesn't change and pretend.
Yeah.
She changes and then walks the walk.
And then she played the piano for Eurovision. My goodness, she is just full of surprises and so quietly confident. A prime example of someone who knows what they're capable of, they're so quiet about it because they know that their actions will speak for themselves.
Yep.
Which is the exact opposite of Meghan Markle.
Yep, the exact opposite of that headline. You don't need the tabloids to say anything about William and Catherine, because their actions will say everything you need to know about them.
Yeah. So, Carl Larson has exposed Meghan in a way with his Instagram post. Because now we know that they're friends. I mean, of course, their supporters can argue, oh, he's just a clout chaser who's pretending to be their friend. But, I mean, come on. You can tell from these photos how close he was as well. I mean, This one in particular, where she's standing alone, it is so crisp.
It's
But
like they probably stopped before they got in the car because it looks like they're about to get in their car, and she's like, hold on, let me just pretend I'm standing here. She's posing. She's probably running over to him. Hey, can I see that one? No, I don't like that one. Let's do it again. Like,
probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Why not? So, speaking of William and Catherine, and again, this is more catch up because this came out last week, or maybe in the lead up to last week. It turns out that the recollections may vary statement that was added into, that was a part of the Queen's response to the Oprah interview in March of 2021, was inserted at Catherine's insistence. So what had happened, she didn't author it, but when it was suggested by a palace courtier, I guess, she really liked it. And she insisted on its inclusion. I read that the Queen or someone else thought it was too much, or maybe the Queen's original statement was very mild and watered down, and Catherine felt it was very important to add that because otherwise people will take what the Sussexes have said as gospel.
Yep.
Are you surprised by that element of Catherine?
Well, it kind of goes back to the teamwork thing, right? That I was saying before. Surprised that it's not coming directly from Queen Elizabeth? Not really. I think it's good that we can see the statement and go, it could have come from either of them. We didn't go, no, that person wouldn't have said that. But interesting contrast there. When Meghan's writing a statement for the press, she's probably saying, this is what we're going to say, and I don't care how you say it. So, I don't care what your opinion is.
Yes.
This is how it goes. But here we're not just talking about the Queen or the princess. We're talking about a courtier.
Well, there would be more than one. Just one of them suggested it. Yeah.
Exactly. So there they are working together as a team, and this is what happens when you have a team. And that statement, those few words are more powerful than almost anything Meghan's ever said, because when you work as a team, many are stronger than one. I forget what the exact saying is, but you mean
synergy.
Yeah.
The sum of something is stronger than its individual parts.
Exactly. Something like that. So this is what happens when you have teamwork. And this is why one of the reasons why Meghan fails so much and so many times, because she refuses to work with people and she just wants to be the boss. Queen Elizabeth could have put her foot down at any point and go, I'm the Queen and we're going to say what I say. But even she knows that's not how you get things done.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd imagine if Meghan was in the Queen's shoes, then that statement would never have made it into the actual statement. The recollections may vary, and it wouldn't have been as profound, because now that is one of the most iconic lines ever uttered by a monarch, I would say, or written, and we all keep referencing it all these years after. And it's not that long ago, but 2 years later, and it will be referenced, I think, until the end of time. In 200 years, people will say, as Queen Elizabeth II said, recollections may vary.
Yeah.
So, look, Catherine, again, full of surprises, because she comes across as such a retiring, demure woman, which can sometimes get mistaken for a weak woman or someone who doesn't have a backbone. The anti-feminist, as it were, which is ironic because I'm planning on making a video on how women like Meghan are actually anti-feminists. And they destroy the cause of feminism as it should be, not today's kind of man-hating feminism, by the way. The feminism of equality.
Yeah, again, the Meghan's version of feminism, much like Harry's version of being a prince, it's all about them. It's what can feminism do for me, not what can I do for feminism. Absolutely.
So, whereas Catherine, I'm not surprised by this streak in her, especially in the past few years. She's really stepped up and she's come out of her shell. But yeah, it's nice to know that was her stamp on the statement. And I love that it's her.
Yeah.
Because it would just burn Meghan all the more.
Absolutely. Because Meghan sees her as direct competition. What does Meghan want to be? She wants to be the Queen.
Speaking of the Oprah interview, I saw another headline that Prince William, in the lead up to the interview, because he knew it was coming out because of all the promo, was so sick with kind of anxiety that he couldn't even eat and sleep, which really broke my heart.
Is that something you do to a family member who has actually done no wrong to you?
Well, their Sussex supporters would argue, well, if he had nothing to be worried about, then he wouldn't be worried. But
hold on a second. If you have nothing to be worried about, someone can tell as many lies about you as possible.
Exactly.
It's like,
we've been at the receiving end of someone who's tried to conduct a smear campaign about Zach in particular because he rejected them in their friend circle. So, of course, it causes anxiety.
It does, because when people lie about you, if people are stupid enough to believe those lies, then suddenly people are going to treat you differently. And at the end of the day, someone treating you unjustly based on lies is disgusting. Prince William knew that if his brother was to lie about him, people would just pick a side, because we've always got this whole side mentality, you know. It's like Pepsi, Coke, you know, Marvel, DC, all this sort of
and
stuff.
sporting events.
And sporting
people
events.
Just fight over sporting teams.
Like actual physical brawls.
Yeah.
Not like, you know,
I
just
guess
the boys.
You could argue that humans are inherently violent, but it's ridiculous.
I mean, I'd like to think we're starting to evolve past that.
Some of us.
Yeah. But yeah, anyone telling lies about you on this sort of platform,
on that level,
and Prince William knowing that he can't go and do an interview with Oprah himself because don't complain, don't explain, again, serving the greater cause. If he did that, it would be a very selfish thing. I mean, sure, he could represent the royal family in a counter interview with Oprah, but that's not what's best for the royal family.
It's not.
You know, when someone wants to start that sort of warfare for you and you have to play the long game and just wait for, you know, the seeds to flourish of, in this case, justice, it's tough.
Yeah. And it explains why he felt the need after the interview when he was asked, are you a racist family? He said, we're very much not a racist family. And I'm quoting him directly here. He was called out by the media, and a lot of people said you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't even have said that simple rebuttal, which he said politely, with a small smile on his face, because that's how William always talks. And people kind of lambasted him for that and said, what happened to never complain, never explain? So it explains why he really felt the need to say that, because he'd already felt so strongly about the interview before it even happened. And another thing I want to mention is he was probably sick to the stomach, because you know how it feels when the person smearing you is profoundly evil.
Yes.
It makes you physically ill.
Yep.
Knowing what they're capable of, how low they will stoop.
Yep.
They accuse people of crimes that they themselves have committed. And they know no bounds. They have no bounds to how far they will go.
Absolutely no shame.
And William knew what Meghan was capable of.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he felt sick to his stomach.
Yep. And the fact that he's probably warned Harry about Meghan by this point, and then Harry has not taken these warnings because Meghan's been playing the whole, I am your mother reincarnate game.
He hasn't just warned him, and this is something that is not news, but it's just kind of been refreshed in my mind from Lady C's book. He told him very politely, hey, you're moving too fast. That's all he said to begin with.
Yep.
And that was it. That was it. Harry, being, the obedient puppet, went to his master, his mistress, and told her. And that was, according to the book, when Harry and Meghan in particular iced William out. He became enemy number one when he said that. And apparently anyone who said that to him, including one of his best friends, Inskip, whom Meghan apparently gate crashed his wedding in 2017 in Jamaica, by the way. I don't know if that's a true story. Again, it's one of those floating stories out there. He also told Harry, slow down.
Yeah.
And he was iced out and wasn't invited to the reception of the wedding.
Because Meghan doesn't like being told what to do. And this was a direct thing that would have stopped Meghan's plans. Meghan's goal was to move too fast, because if she moved fast enough before anyone could warn Harry, he would be stuck, which is where he is now. He doesn't want to divorce her because of his kids, probably, but the fact that she was so adamant, and the fact that no one, I mean, seriously, not a single close friend, your own brother, no one can tell you, hey, I want to say this in confidentiality, and I want to tell you because I care about you. And as simple as slow down. It's not we disapprove or we don't think you should be with this person or anything like that. It's as simple as just slow down a little bit, just take your time, which there's nothing wrong with that.
That was deemed offensive. And then William went back when the bullying allegations became too much. And that was the brawl. That was when Harry alleges William pushed him and he broke the dog bowl, which was, I think, made of metal, and, you know, ripped his necklace, you know, that story. So that was William telling him, your wife needs to stop bullying the staff. That's what happened.
And Harry knew that. Harry knew he couldn't tell Meghan that, I guess, because then, well, Meghan's going to be like, your mother wouldn't like that, would she?
Well, he did tell her. She apparently saw the scratches from the dog bowl.
Well, more that Harry...
Oh, tell her to stop bullying.
Yeah, he couldn't say that. You know.
Well, he from the books, from Courtiers, from his own book, from Revenge, and from Lady C's book. So I've got 4 books written by 4 different people who've presumably conducted their own research. All of them agree in that Harry participated in that behavior.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Because he's following his role model.
Exactly.
His example.
Exactly. And again, he doesn't give a shit about any other person on this planet besides himself and Meghan. And that's it. That's the only people he cares about. So if he's going to make someone else feel horrible, what does he care? If he's going to waste UK taxpayers' money and then US taxpayers' money, he doesn't care. It's not his money. It's almost like he's the poster child for selfishness if Meghan wasn't around.
Well, he's the male one.
Yeah, exactly. We've got, it's like prom king and queen.
Yeah,
you know,
pretty much.
For the most fitting, the most selfish people on the planet.
Ironically, Meghan was prom queen, I think, homecoming queen. In closing, I want to bring up the fact that the Wall Street Journal, this isn't new, it's a couple of weeks old, June 24th, released an article called Harry and Meghan Produce a Hollywood Flop Themselves.
Oh, I love that.
They arrived 3 years ago with royal star power amid a streaming boom, but have notched more cancellations and rejections than produced shows. Now, it's behind a paywall, which I haven't paid because I have too many subscriptions that I need to deal with at this point before I add some more. But we don't need to read the article to understand what it's talking about.
I think that the title just does it, doesn't it? It's, you know, the article's probably not going to say anything that we don't already know.
Yes.
Because we've been talking about this and exposing these people for so long. But it's nice to see the Wall Street Journal pick the right side for once.
I find it very fitting because the Wall Street Journal was the journal, the publication that brought down Elizabeth Holmes.
There you go.
This is 2015. And now Elizabeth Holmes, as you all know, or maybe you don't know, is someone that I've always been very interested in and I've covered a couple of times on this channel, very recently, a couple of months ago. So if you haven't seen that video, I will put it up in the cards. But they released the article in October 2015, and within 24 hours, that empire came crumbling down. So in this case, it's different. The Wall Street Journal is commenting posthumously, not that they're dead, but after the end of their empire anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they still have a long way to fall, I believe. But the fact that people have started turning and the fact that the Wall Street Journal even has something to report here is definitely the downhill slope.
Yeah, which, you know, is a fitting way to kind of conclude this episode, Endgame. It's funny that Omid Scobie is releasing a book where he's threatening the royal family, essentially. Oh, I'm going to expose things you're going to be so ashamed of. And he's calling it Endgame when really it's the endgame for his masters.
Yep.
It is a bit of a bandwagon mentality right now, which we alluded to at the very opening, where it's popular to hate on Meghan and Harry, and now it's the safe thing to do. And I'm talking more about these Hollywood executives that are only now coming out. and saying, oh, they lack talent. Oh, excuse me. I mean, the writing was on the wall like 4 years ago.
Yeah. Did you maybe think to do an audition to see if they had talent in the first place?
Exactly. Did you actually do your due diligence before you gave them hundreds of millions of dollars? This was an unproven couple. Meghan was not someone who actually was, a Hollywood elite that Harry ended up marrying.
She had nothing to show for herself.
Absolutely. And that's no shade. It's just fact. So it is the popular thing now, because I've also noticed that people like, the George Clooney's of the world are no longer coming out with statements defending them.
Yes, maybe because the George Clooney's of the world have wisened up a little bit.
Or there's that, or they're selfish and all they're thinking about is their own reputation. Yep. When they used to defend Meghan and Harry, it was when they were still royals.
Yeah.
So they had something to gain from them. They stood to gain clout. You can argue George Clooney doesn't need it, but this is royalty. One thing that Meghan and Harry clearly misunderstood and continue to misunderstand is that royalty trumps celebrity any day.
Absolutely.
Being royal is on a different sphere, a different dimension. And Meghan, in her typical way, tried to drag down royalty to the depths of celebrity.
Yep. It's almost as if Meghan wanted to be such a big celebrity, but didn't have the talent for it. So she's like, I mean, this is pretty far-fetched, but at the same time, everything she does is far-fetched. Maybe she thought, I'll get into the royal family and that's how I'll be a celebrity. That
is not a maybe. That is, in a nutshell, what she set out to do. In a nutshell. People who have wisened up to her from the very beginning have always remarked that this woman is here with a plan. She's here with a plan and she's going to execute the plan, not a person. She never intended on sticking around.
Yep.
Which is mind-boggling. I've always said this. You have the opportunity of a lifetime to become a senior member of one of the most popular royal families on the planet in history, the British royal family, and you want to be a celebrity?
Yep. She blew that. She blew her celebrity card. She blew her just being famous because I've done nothing to earn her card. Everything she touches turns to dust. She is the opposite of a Midas touch. She is someone who cannot hold on to any success. And if we look back onto how she acts with these people, the way she doesn't work as a team, the way she has to have her way, and the way that she schemes in her own head and these crazy thoughts, is it any wonder that this is happening? It's exactly what someone who would do this deserves.
It's textbook.
It is.
So she did it in her Archetypes podcast, in my video where I talked about why I believe Archetypes was always doomed to fail. One of the things I brought up was how she brought these really successful women. I'm talking, Serena Williams, for example, because to me, she was one of the most impressive. There were many impressive women. And she dragged them down to her level of victimhood. I think we said this in our first podcast back in podcast 74. Who wants a victim for a role model?
Absolutely.
We're all inspired by people who do things, people who fight, people who survive. Strength is inspiring.
Yep. If we're going to be inspired by a victim, it's by someone who has been through some sort of tragedy and rose above it and didn't let it hold them down. And that's not Meghan.
Exactly. They're not defined as a victim. In fact, these people you'll find do not see themselves as victims.
Absolutely. That's absolutely the truth.
Yeah. So it's her thing. She's dragging things that are way above her down to her level.
Because there's no possible way that she could ever attain a level that high. She is incapable of being any sort of version of talented because she's incapable of having any insight, incapable of understanding that anything she has done is wrong. And people who are talented and gifted and good at their skills are constantly reflecting and constantly looking, whether it's acting, whether it's music, whatever it is, even if it's as simple as, a podcast, right? It is always an improvement. But Meghan thinks she's perfect. but then has to drag everyone else down. So her perfection, or her deranged perfection, is just so lackluster.
She knows deep inside that she's not.
Yeah.
And that's why she drags people down.
Yep.
To make herself feel better. On that note, I think we're pretty much done having a quick look at the agenda here. There are a few things that I wanted to touch upon that we'll probably save for a future episode because we're over the, allotted time for this episode. So anything you want to add?
I think we've said plenty. I think we've definitely hit the nail on the head here. And Meghan's downfall continues.
Well, and Harry.
And Harry.
And Harry. They are in this together. It takes two to tango. Please, again, a reminder, do not get offended about the conspiracy theories. Many conspiracy theories in the past have proven to be true. They have stood the test of time. And that is why, if anyone has any solid evidence, then you've based your beliefs on solid evidence. But anything short of that, I would urge you to focus more on, on the facts than what's more exciting, in your head. Otherwise, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's good to be back after a week. I'm going to have to remind myself to take time off more often. Not very often, but just it's necessary.
It seems to be a common theme that, a lot of people, especially like you, who are very motivated and hardworking, do often forget to take time to relax. So I'm glad you did.
Yeah, sometimes I don't realize I need it until it hits me in the face like a brick wall.
Yep.
Which is pretty much what happened. Because up until last Sunday, I was like, well, we're doing a podcast on Monday. I was like, no, I'm not. Yep. You want to do it alone? Go ahead. But I'm out. Peace. Which, we're out. Peace.
Yeah. See you
later.
time.